A resident coalition is a group of local residents who work together to address issues affecting their lives. One of the first steps for launching a resident coalition is to bring together a core group of local resident leaders who can help guide initial planning and recruitment efforts. These resident leaders should represent disadvantaged groups in the community in terms of their race and ethnicity, income, and where they live. You can identify this core group of resident leaders by asking for recommendations from community groups, like local neighborhood associations, churches, and service organizations. One of the first things this core group of resident leaders can do is to identify an initial set of goals the coalition could work to bring about for the community. They can also plan out what roles the coalition could play to achieve these goals. Clarifying these goals and roles can help to ensure everyone is on the same page about the purpose of the resident coalition. It can also help the coalition make sure it is staying on track. The resident leaders can identify some initial coalition goals and roles to get the planning and launching process started. Once more residents are recruited to the coalition, the full coalition can decide if they want to change or add anything based on these goals and roles. Let's start with goals. A good place to start is to decide which community outcomes the coalition will focus on. If the community has a shared vision, the core group of resident leaders can select vision goals that are most important to local residents, or they can select additional goals outside the shared vision. For example, a resident coalition could focus on bringing about goals related to the community, local organizations, and local residents. For the community, these goals could include things like neighborhood safety, or improving local service delivery system, like helping organizations address access barriers. It could also include goals related to shifting community attitudes about the power of residents. If community goals like these are selected, the coalition should be designed so members can problem solve and take action around community issues. In addition to community goals, the coalition could also pursue goals related to helping local organizations become more responsive to resident needs. If this is the goal, the coalition should be designed so it can provide organizations with input or help influence their decision-making. The coalition could also pursue goals for local residents, like increasing local residents' motivation to get involved in local change and their leadership roles in the community. If these types of goals are selected, the coalition should be designed so that it provides opportunities for residents to take action and builds residents' leadership skills. Once these goals have been identified, residents can work with local partners to decide what roles the resident coalition could play to pursue these goals. Resident coalitions can play any combination of the following roles: consultant, partner, and change agent. In the consultant role, resident coalitions provide input to organizations and local efforts to help them make decisions. For example, an organization might send a question or a draft document to the resident coalition to get their feedback, or someone from the organization might attend a coalition meeting to ask these questions in person. Residents can provide input on local community needs and desires, whether current efforts, programs, or services are meeting these needs and desires, how to design future efforts, programs, or services, how to word written materials like applications or consent forms so they make sense to residents. Note that the consultant role is strictly advisory. Residents have no influence over final decisions. They just give information that others can choose whether or not to use in making their decisions. So while the consultant role helps provide valuable input to the community, if a resident coalition is only engaged in the consultant role with no actual decision-making power, residents can begin to feel like token representatives. Over time, this can lead to a sense of disempowerment and decreased engagement. How do you prevent this? Add in more empowering resident coalition roles in addition to consultant. For example, many resident coalitions also play a partner role, where they not only give input, but they also have direct influence on local decisions. For example, residents can help local organizations or collaboratives prioritize which community issues or inequities to target for change. They can also influence decisions about how to design strategies or which new staff or leaders to hire. The partner role is more empowering than the consultant role because residents have actual influence over decisions affecting their lives. The partner role helps to legitimize resident voice and often leads to greater engagement over time. In addition to the consultant and partner role, resident coalitions can also play a change agent role. Here, residents not only give input and influence decision-making, but they also carry out action. For example, resident coalitions can collect information about local needs by talking with other residents, or observing community conditions like how many neighborhood convenience stores sell fresh produce. Resident coalitions can also take actions to directly address community needs, such as creating resident support networks, advocating for needed policy changes, or building public will around their goals. Remember, resident coalitions can be designed to play any combination of these three roles at the same time. For example, a resident coalition could provide input on written materials or strategy ideas in the consultant role, and they could influence local priorities and decisions in the partner role. and they could take action in the change agent role. Residents and community partners can work together to define what roles the resident coalition will take, and then put the conditions in place to support these roles. In summary, an important first step in developing a resident coalition is selecting initial goals and roles for the coalition. These goals and roles will guide how the coalition is ultimately designed and what it does. Want to learn more about the different roles a resident coalition could play in the community? Click the link shown under this video to see examples. Thanks for watching this video on Step 1 of building a resident coalition series. Continue watching the next video in this series on how to develop a recruitment plan for a resident coalition. Find additional resources to support community change in the links below.